Hi, I'm Marty Nemko. I'm developing a leadership management boot camp for students at a local university. Well, here I adapt it for you. I offer its core content here, plus an easily doable activity that would enable you to apply that content, even if you're not currently in a managerial or leadership role. You can complete this so-called boot camp by yourself or with one or more respected colleagues or friends. First, regarding managing people. 3 key points. Default to kindness. Long gone are the days of the authoritarian boss. Yeah, there are times to make a crisp unilateral decision and times to be tough on an employee, but default to kindness. Praising where deserved, asking for employees' input, really listening to them, and just being friendly. That doesn't mean being their BFF. It means showing appropriate caring about them as human beings. They're not just work units. Second point, one size does not fit all. Even if a supervisee objects to your not treating everyone the same, you usually should stay firm. The manager and leader's job is to facilitate each supervisee being their best. That requires an individualized approach, more supervision or less, a heavier or lighter workload, and so on. Third point, hiring wisely may be your most important task. If you're fortunate enough to be able to hire a supervisee or two, rely primarily on referrals from trusted colleagues. Unfortunately, especially in our COVID-restricted economy, too high a percentage of job seekers will make themselves seem much better than they really are and make it difficult for you to unearth the truth. For example, Monster.com research found that nearly half of job seekers were guilty of dishonesty in their application. In the selection process, prioritize 2 things. Probing claimed accomplishments to see how much substance there really is, and to that end, ask the candidates to walk you through a couple of the key accomplishments they list on the resume. Even more important, ask candidates to demonstrate how they would tackle a couple of the job's common difficult tasks. And here is an activity to practice some of this. Write and or discuss with your boot camp partner the steps that you would take with a supervisee whose work was marginal and too slowly produced. Recognize that you need to be time effective in your efforts to diagnose and try to get that supervisee to improve. Next, let's turn to conflict resolution. Key points? There are 3 of these as well. Announce prevention. If you've managed well, most employees are more likely to let small perceived annoyances roll off their back. 2, that said, at some point, some conflict will likely occur. Consciously decide whether time will heal and so you should do nothing, or whether you should intervene. If the latter, a light hand is usually wise. If the conflict is between 2 supervisees, a manager is often wise to tell the 2, do you want to try to put on your statesperson hat, see if you can resolve it privately, and if not, I'm here to mediate? And third, easier said than done, but patient listening often resolves conflict. That's particularly difficult when you are the target of the complainant's ire. Listen, maybe even take notes to let the person know you're taking the concern seriously, and then if possible ask, so, what might be a resolution that would be wise where both parties can feel okay about it? Here's an activity that enables you to practice this. Imagine that one of your supervisees is claiming that you are being racist or sexist. How would you respond? And what if that didn't work? And what if that didn't work? Now let's turn to public speaking. Key points? Realize that your natural self, ad-libbing with a few notes, will likely be more persuasive, easy, pleasurable, and a needed antidote to the over-prepared, sanitized, chemistry-leached speaker. And the second core point is to face failure. You can survive even in utter failure. You get tongue-tied, confused, even need to stop and say you feel you can't continue. You'll either get better over time or realize that public speaking just isn't your thing. Plenty of people have good, successful lives without being a public speaker, but chances are you're going to be better than you think, and you'll get plenty good enough, especially if you follow the aforementioned relaxed approach to preparing and delivering a talk, whether you're giving a 1-minute update at a staff meeting, toasting a loved one at a wedding, or giving a keynote. A practice activity, pick a topic, one you know a lot about, or a topic you're going to be giving a talk about. Write a word or phrase that stands for each point you want to make. Next to each, write a word or phrase to remind you of a supporting anecdote or a statistic. With just those words in front of you, give your talk into your phone's voice memo or voice recorder app. Critique it. You'll probably feel better about it than you may think. Don't worry too much about ums and ahs and even retracements. Unless you're a real pro speaker, a human, credible talk filled with such minor flaws is usually far better than a polished, scripted talk. Then give your talk, again ad-lib with just a few talking points in front of you, to a person or three. Consider, but don't necessarily accept any of their feedback. If it's an important talk, practice it one more time, and then stop. Over-practicing leaches the aforementioned chemistry and makes it more likely you'll be so tied to your plan that if you get distracted, for example, by a question or a stray thought, you'll have a harder time getting back on track. Now let's turn to budgeting. 3 key points. Think of it as your money. Is this initiative worth funding? If so, what would be the most cost-effective way to do it? Not necessarily the cheapest way or the best way, but the most cost-effective way, a way that would likely yield solid benefit per dollar. Second point, consider the opportunity cost. If you saved money on X, what could that money be used for that would yield more benefit? And finally, and importantly, think of cost-benefit in terms of all stakeholders, customers, co-workers, society. It shouldn't be all about profit maximization. Yes, increased profit it creates and saves jobs. It means that customers are deriving sufficient benefit to part with their money, and perhaps that investors get a return on their hard-earned dollars. But the wise manager and leader also considers the impact of resource allocation on the employees and on society, from the local community to possibly even the planet. Here's a practice activity. For your work unit, or if you don't have one, a work unit you could see yourself running, identify 3 major priorities. What would be one or more cost-effective approaches to each of those, considering profit, people, and society? Now let's turn to strategic planning. Some key points. Avoid the cliched. Too often, organizations develop a strategic plan by convening a meeting, which, because of its desire to build consensus, end up agreeing only on the easily agreed on. For example, our organization needs to put ethics first and serve our community. Well, that's very rarely useful. Too often, it just becomes an empty slogan that's hung on a wall or on an organization's site. A strategic plan should be anchored by 1 to 3 actionable, not obvious core pillars. For example, a human resources group might conclude that for the next year or two, a primary focus should be on helping new employees transition from the halls of academia to the realities of the work world, while acknowledging millennials and Gen Z's tendency to demand more agency, growth opportunities, and that the organization be not just about profit maximization, but societal improvement. In developing a strategic plan, also consider the megatrends. For example, we are in an era of accelerated focus on race, gender, and income inequality. The implications extend to a wide range of businesses, for-profit, non-profit, and government. In developing your strategic plan, consider that and other megatrends, such as data-centric decision-making, global competition, increased government-mandated employee rights and benefits, and likely a shrinking middle class, less able to afford all but the basics. And finally, do a SWOT analysis. That acronym refers to your organization or work group's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Here's an activity. Pretend that you and perhaps your boot camp's co-participants are going to identify 3 pillars of your organization's strategic plan. If you're not currently employed, or create one for the sort of organization you would aspire to be managing or leading. In creating those pillars, consider making them up as needed, the organization's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. After developing those pillars, play devil's advocate. What's wrong with the plan? How should it be revised or even replaced? Next steps. If you don't currently have sufficient management or leadership opportunities, try to get more so you can apply your boot camp's learning. Ask friends who are involved in a nonprofit if there might be an opportunity for you to manage even a small project or group of volunteers, or even join their board. If you, quote, attended such a management or leadership boot camp with another person, consider staying in touch, even meeting if only virtually monthly, so that you guys can share your successes and get input on challenges. In conclusion, wise leadership may be the most important subject that's not taught in college. Maybe this boot camp can help you become the wise leader and in turn make a difference while feeling good about how you're living your life. In any event, I thank you for watching. I'm Marty Nemko. I welcome your thumbs up and accept your thumbs down. I always look forward to your comments, and especially like it if you hit the share button below, share on your social media so that my efforts can have broader impact. And I am flattered if you choose to subscribe to this channel. In any event, I do thank you for watching. I'm Marty Nemko.